As we ring in the new year, we look back on the stories that shaped 2021.
What we're looking at is being able to create conversations about lived experiences.
For better and for worse.
Her death is on Utah's hands, on the people, on the school districts.
There were wins and far too many losses.
Losing a member of your fire family and your family, it feels like family. It's a very hard thing to go through.
But through our struggles,
you know, we talk about the drought all the time, like, oh, it's dry in Utah. Well, this year, it's serious.
We learned a better way.
Despite those setbacks, this organization has come together
as we look forward to a brighter 2022.
Welcome to this KSL special Year in Review. I'm Mike Hedrick alongside Deanie Wimmer here. We're going to start things off with the strange disappearance of a 22-year-old woman, capturing the nation's attention as search efforts zeroed in on southern Utah and Wyoming.
KSL TV followed this story closely and broke some of the biggest developments in the case. News specialist Garna Mejia reports on what happened to Gabby Petito.
Gabby Petito never goes outside.
Her disappearance captivated the nation as a cross-country search zeroed in on southern Utah and Wyoming. On September 1st, 22-year-old Gabby Petito's boyfriend, Brian Laundrie, came home early from a van life cross-country trip. But even though the couple documented their every stop on social media, there was no sign of Petito, and Laundrie wasn't talking.
If you look at her Instagram page, you can actually find a lot of evidence of where they were.
Desperate, Petito's family alerted authorities and the media, and a grassroots effort exploded on social media by September 12th, when police in New York filed an official missing persons case for Petito.
We've just been fighting this morning.
Then reports and body cam footage surfaced in Moab. Police saw the couple on August 12th during what they deemed a domestic violence dispute that initially labeled Petito as the aggressor.
What was it you were attempting to accomplish by slapping?
I was trying to get him to stop telling me something.
But Petito's family focused their efforts at Grand Teton National Park, where she was last seen in late August with Laundrie, as they pleaded for him to help with search efforts.
You should be cooperating with the law enforcement agencies and giving them all the information they need so we could find Gabby and bring her home.
But as speculation grew around Laundrie, believed to be keeping a low profile at his parents' Florida home, authorities discovered the unthinkable on September 19th. KSL TV's Chopper 5 was in the sky and the first media outlet to witness detectives approach a site not far from Grand Teton National Park in the Spread Creek dispersed camping area, where they discovered what appeared to be human remains. Those remains were later confirmed to belong to Petito, and her cause of death was determined to be strangulation. Meantime, in a twist of events, authorities in Florida discovered that Laundrie was also missing. He had not been seen by family since September 14th, when he went for a hike in a nearby wildlife refuge. After several weeks of searching and intense media speculation, Laundrie's parents were with detectives when they discovered partial human remains in a 160-acre park next to the Carlton Wildlife Reserve on October 20th. The medical examiner later confirmed the remains belonged to Laundrie, and his family attorney said he died by suicide from a gunshot wound to the head.
Hello.
Gabby Petito's parents have since started a foundation in her honor to help victims of domestic violence and to raise awareness about other missing persons cases. For KSL 5 News, I'm Garna Mejia.
Garna, thank you. 2021 continues to be a difficult time for a community in Moab as the double murder of two women there remains unsolved. Newlywed couple was found shot and killed near their campsite. News specialist Mike Anderson now with a look at the story so far.
The more time passes,
it's the holiday season. It's really tough for our family.
The more difficult it is for Sean Paul Schulte to go without answers. His daughter, Kylen Schulte, and her wife, Crystal Turner, were both found shot and killed after they disappeared August 13th.
All the girls are gone. We don't have answers. That's torturous.
The women were initially reported missing, and it was a friend, Cindy Sue Hunter, who managed to find them in the La Salle Mountains.
And that's when I saw Kai's body. And So at that point, there's a lot of screaming and crying.
Then about a month later, police in New York start investigating the disappearance of 22-year-old Gabby Petito. Petito had passed through Utah and Wyoming with boyfriend Brian Laundrie, including Moab, where police had previously talked with the couple after witnesses reported seeing them arguing and slapping each other. Coincidentally, the two had also been seen at the Moonflower Co-op in Moab, where Kylan Schulte worked, but investigators say they have since determined that the two cases are not related. Meantime,
the town cherished those girls.
Sean Paul Schulte continued his efforts maintaining a clue booth at Swanee City Park in Moab, where he says he got a number of tips, and in part through that,
along with this 9mm, there was a shotgun and a rifle.
He and a private investigator are now asking the public to look out for 3 stolen weapons. We were able to confirm through a records request that those 3 Turkish-made firearms were reported stolen in Montezuma County, Colorado, shortly before the double murder. Still, Schulte admits there's no clear tie between the stolen weapons and the case right now, but he's curious since 9mm casings were found at the murder scene. Mike Anderson, KSL 5 News.
Mike, thank you. It has been a difficult year for our men and our women in blue. At least 6 officers shot in the line of duty in 2021. Thankfully, though, all of them survived. The first shooting happened in February. Provo police officer John Asagara shot at least 2 times as police responded to a complaint of a man with a gun. That man later on firing an assault rifle at officers. Then in April, 2 Salt Lake County Sheriff's deputies were shot during a routine campus security check at the jail complex. As officers approached a man near the campus there, he pulled a handgun and began shooting. It was in late November when a South Jordan police officer was nearly killed after a bullet severed his femoral artery. That officer was one of several responding to a home serving an arrest warrant when the wanted man shot at police. Then, just a few weeks ago, a gun battle in Taylorsville. Police exchanging fire with the suspect in a rape and robbery investigation. A unified police officer and an officer with West Valley were both injured in that incident.
We did have one line of duty death in 2021, a longtime unified fire captain who lost his battle with COVID-19.
He loved serving the community. He loved working in the fire service. And I think that's one of the biggest things we're all going to remember about him is just his dedication to both his fire family and his family at home.
Captain Merrill Bone died on Halloween after 39 years of service as a firefighter. UFA believes he contracted the virus during one of his shifts, even though he was vaccinated. As the year began, community medical experts were optimistic that the COVID-19 vaccines would help eliminate coronavirus. For several reasons, that hope rose and fell this year, and Utah still struggles with high case counts, full hospitals, and many people losing their lives to COVID-19. News specialist Jed Bull has this COVID year in review.
We are highest risk now of getting COVID, higher than we ever have been before. Therefore, we've got to make this a commitment to finish this race.
Utah started the year with a holiday surge and one of the highest COVID-19 infection rates in the nation.
It likely will get worse in terms of numbers, so even more important that we have everyone recommit in 2021 to doing the preventive measures, public health measures that work.
Healthcare workers rolled up their sleeves for a second dose of vaccine.
I feel a little bit more relief. I feel more protected, and I feel more encouraged for the future.
Doctors and nurses hoping to stop the virus, killing patients in their care. Mass vaccination sites opening as seniors lined up first.
I'm too susceptible to the COVID. I have hypertension and diabetes and arthritis.
It was easy. It was, no pain, no strain, no anything.
Early spring, as most Utahns became eligible for vaccination, doctors described a race between the vaccines and variant strains.
However, we have really good news. The vaccines work against the variants, and we're doing a great job in Utah at getting the vaccine out to our population. So it's so important that when the vaccine is available to you, you get it.
By May, half of Utah's adults had received at least one dose, but demand declined.
We think that we've probably gotten a large number of people that were enthusiastic about being vaccinated, have gotten vaccinations, But now we're moving into a time where people are somewhat hesitant.
State leaders remained optimistic.
Our cases are decreasing in Utah, but also nationally, which is a great sign.
Dr. Angela Dunn delivered good news in her last briefing as state epidemiologist.
And the more we continue to vaccinate individuals, the faster this drop will happen.
You don't declare victory until we get to the end of this thing, but I think we all feel pretty good about things.
As vaccinations slowed in the summer, coronavirus variants spread.
We're seeing a very significant surge in disease.
1 month before kids returned to school without masks, COVID cases and hospitalizations continued to rise.
Picture this fall is going to be very different than we thought it might be when things were looking better. And there's going to be a lot of concerns about transmission in school.
It's really concerning. I mean, I think especially when we have a vulnerable population under 12 that can't be vaccinated. I mean, I personally would like to see kids wearing masks in school, especially in that age group.
The Utah legislature had banned mask requirements in schools. COVID cases straining Utah's hospitals through fall.
The hospital is full. We have patients waiting in the emergency room for beds.
Caregivers worn out. Many left their jobs.
I do think it makes it harder for people to stay in the workforce and have that sense of commitment when 98% of the patients that they're taking care of are patients who could have prevented this by getting vaccinated. And that's a strain.
By Thanksgiving, health experts and state leaders urging everyone to get their booster to reduce the surge sustained by the Delta variant and to protect against Omicron.
We need everyone possible to get vaccinated who hasn't yet in order to get through this crisis. It's impacting not just their own health, but the health of all of our citizens who did the right thing and went ahead and got vaccinated already.
For KSL 5 News, Year in Review, I'm Jed Bowl.
All right, thank you, Jed. COVID's impact went far beyond hospitals and testing sites in 2021. From a backlog of ships on the West Coast to empty shelves and higher price tags. News specialist Matt Rascone takes a look back at supply chain issues and Utah's efforts to fix the problem.
I think part of the issue is you don't really know.
You've probably noticed it online or on store shelves.
People are buying a lot.
You may have felt it at the checkout.
We haven't seen this kind of inflation. We haven't seen 6.2% in 30 years. It's a perfect economic storm.
Supply chain issues.
I don't think we've seen anything like this on the supply chain side of things since World War II.
And all of the not so merry things that come with it.
It's kind of a scary situation.
Shipping delays.
Go out, get your Christmas presents now.
Product and labor shortages.
Don't wait until the last week.
And inflation.
Because it might not be available and it'll probably be more expensive than it is today.
And it's not just hitting consumers, but schools too. No matter how difficult it's become.
We definitely need help
to find food.
We're just not able to get our deliveries in.
And workers.
The workload hasn't changed and there's less people doing it.
There's no getting around the need to prepare 44,000 meals a day for students at Granite School District.
Kids are counting on breakfast and lunch in their classrooms and at their schools.
So it's kind of like a perfect storm. The volume of meals have gone up. The labor shortages, the food supply chain shortages has just compounded the whole issue.
Today, hundreds of miles from the backlog of ships.
It's about moving these boxes.
Utah's inland port
more efficiently and effectively
is trying to speed up the supply chain process.
There's a much more efficient way to get it in here, and that's by rail.
Heading into the new year.
It was a difficult year. I won't sugarcoat it.
Cracking down on crime. Still ahead, the difficult data that prompted a new response plan from Salt Lake PD.
And Utah's weather hitting all the extremes in 2021, from deadly avalanches to flash flooding. Coming up next here, a look at our severe drought as we head into 2022. One of the deadliest avalanches in Utah history hit just 5 weeks into 2021.
It struck on Saturday morning up Mill Creek Canyon on February 6th and killed 4 experienced backcountry skiers. News specialist Dan Rascone was one of several KSL reporters who covered the story as it played out for several days.
And everyone's going to miss those 4 people.
The faces and memories of 4 experienced backcountry skiers.
You know, they weren't reckless.
Who all lost their lives in this deadly avalanche up Mill Creek Canyon on Saturday, February 6th. All adventurous.
I mean, he loved being in the Wasatch.
And young, 23-year-old Tom Steinbrecher.
They had gone up 3 times already, and they were going for their 4th, and it just happened. Sometimes the risk is just unknown.
26-year-old Stephanie Hopkins.
I just want everybody to know how vibrant she was as an individual and how inspiring.
26-year-old Louis Holian.
Hiked, he climbed, he skied. He's a beautiful person that I hope everybody strives to be like.
And 29-year-old Sarah Mogamian.
She's really lived her life to the fullest and was doing what she loved to do.
This avalanche was a killer.
The call came into Life Flight about noon that Saturday. 2 different groups of skiers for a total of 8 were on the mountain when the massive slide hit. 6 of them were buried. 4 lost their lives.
They were all traumatized.
Rick Black, a 20-year Life Flight veteran, helped hoist out 3 victims.
Probably the most tragic, and it's the most difficult avalanche scene that I have ever witnessed.
Rick is also a backcountry skier. He knows and loves his terrain.
These are my people. These are the individuals that I like to hang out with.
A reminder of just how quickly life can change.
Sunny day, you're with friends, you're having a great time, and then just a couple of turns and your world turns upside down, and it turns into the worst possible day that they have ever had.
It was a loud, thunderous whoomp.
Chris Camitro was one of the avalanche survivors. He spoke exclusively with KSL 9 days after the deadly slide. He managed to rescue 2 skiers who were buried, but by the time he got to his girlfriend, Sarah Mogamian, it was too late.
There's not another person like her in the world. Everybody that knew her knew that she was brilliant and loving and caring and strong.
Chris says the conditions were perfect, so they thought.
And skied 3 laps before the avalanche happened on our 3rd climb back up, and skiing there is a decision I'll regret the rest of my life for all of their sakes.
Chris is being called a hero for saving 2 skiers, but that's not how he sees it.
A hero doesn't put people in that position.
But Sarah's parents are finding some comfort. Their daughter was doing what she loved.
We never want to see her go, but it's the best way she could go.
That was Dan Rascone reporting. According to Utah's Avalanche Center, in 2021, 7 people lost their lives to avalanches, 6 skiers, 1 snowmobiler, making it the most deadly season in more than 15 years. Deanie?
Severe weather was the story of the summer in Cedar City. More rain on top of more rain, causing widespread flooding for much of Iron County. Streets turned into rivers. People's yards became muddy messes. Basements had to be torn up after too much water came rushing in. And once again, Utahns helped Utahns. In each of these videos, you're seeing the kindness of neighbors and even strangers to help unlucky families clean up the damage. Many of the top stories in Utah this year were centered around events that happened. But this year, one of the most important stories was about something that has not been happening statewide. Here's news specialist Andrew Adams.
This drought has got me really concerned.
Where there is water, there is life.
It makes a guy sick.
Farmers this year, though, struggled to find a pulse.
You know, we talk about the drought all the time, like, oh, it's dry in Utah. Well, this year, it's serious.
Drought in Utah went to new extremes.
We need every single person in Utah taking wildfire prevention seriously.
And no matter the messaging to the public,
reduce lawn watering to no more than twice a week for northern Utah and 3 times a week for southern Utah.
It's okay if your lawn turns yellow or brown, the grass will survive next year.
State and local leaders were faced with hard choices themselves.
We've never seen it this bad before. We can't keep doing what we were doing, otherwise our tanks will run dry.
Water restrictions were common this summer across urban and rural areas.
That hurts, buddy. That hurts.
Farmers struggled with which crops to save.
Most of the last 20 years have been dry. We have had a couple of wet years here and there that have helped us fill our reservoirs. But over these 20 years, the whole thing is basically a drought. It's generally dry conditions over those 20 years.
Activists pleaded for better policy and better compliance.
We need to reduce our water use outside where we use the majority of our water in Utah.
And we've been ignoring the need to do that for many, many decades.
And only this fall did the weather finally bring some relief.
When we got the monsoonal rain, it was unusually strong this year, and that was quite helpful. And it actually pushed our soil moisture in the other direction.
As of December, though, all of Utah was still in severe to exceptional drought. And until long-term patterns pump out more water, scientists say any small gains may just be a drop in the bucket.
Unfortunately, it's going to take more than just 1 year of above-average snowpack to get us back on track.
Andrew Adams, KSL 5 News.
Well, when we look back, Andrew, it is amazing to see what happened at the beginning of 2021 and what's going on at the end of 2021. The drought monitor showing in January of 2021, a majority of our state was in extreme drought. But when you animate this through, you'll notice it got worse as we got into the months of June and July. And that's where it really peaked, taking over the entirety of western Utah. But with some rains that came in the summer from the monsoon and with some of the fall rains that came, we reduced that extreme section down to severe. Now, I know that's not a lot to celebrate, but when you look at the numbers, it actually isn't as bad as it could be. Yearly average in Salt Lake is 15.5 inches. We'll finish the year 94% of normal. It's a pretty good place to be. Now, it definitely isn't where we want to be. We need to be above average to start to recover. But the snowfall, we averaged 51.9 inches in Salt Lake. And this year so far, we've only had 31.4 inches, only 61%. So below normal on the snowfall, but pretty close on the precipitation. The trick is, it's going to take multiple years to get out of this drought. We need water to come year-round, rain and snow. This year was a little sparse. Let's hope that 2022 turns out to be a little bit better.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Tragedy striking the Utah football community again. Still ahead, the shooting death motivating the team to be 22% better every single day.
And Capitol riot. Looking back at one of the darkest days in American history and the reaction from Utahns in harm's way.
Nearly 1 year ago, America and the world stood stunned as a mob overtook the U.S. Capitol.
The deadly riot resulted in a second impeachment trial for former President Donald Trump. News specialist Ladd Egan looks back at the incident and the aftermath.
January 6, 2021, violence erupted at the U.S. Capitol as a mob moved in. Lawmakers who had gathered for the counting of the Electoral College results,
and then they just start banging on doors,
were forced to go into lockdown, barricade themselves in offices, and later evacuate.
This kind of activity, there is no excuse for it. There's no justification for it.
This security video shows Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman directing Utah Senator Mitt Romney to safety. Romney later said he was deeply grateful for the officers' heroic actions. Once law enforcement had secured the building, lawmakers returned that night.
What a tremendous message to the American people that we will not be dissuaded by a mob.
They stayed until the early morning hours to finish the electoral vote count.
And I was shaken to the core as I thought about the people I met in China and Russia and Afghanistan and Iraq and other places who yearn for freedom and who look to this building and these shores as a place of hope. And I saw the images being broadcast around the world, and it breaks my heart.
In the aftermath, the Capitol was left in disarray, Washington, D.C. in a state of emergency, and the death toll grew to 5 people. A week later, the House of Representatives approved a single article of impeachment accusing President Donald Trump of incitement of insurrection.
The House demonstrated that no one is above the law, not even the President of the United States.
The impeachment proceedings focused on Trump's comments, including on the morning of the riot when he urged supporters to march to the Capitol.
We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
Then the Senate held a week-long trial after Trump had already left office.
He assembled the mob, he summoned the mob, and he incited the mob.
Trump's defense team called the accusations unjust and an act of political retaliation.
To claim that the president in any way wished, desired, or encouraged lawless or violent behavior is a preposterous and monstrous lie.
In the end, the Senate acquitted Trump of inciting an insurrection.
The respondent, Donald John Trump, former president of the United States, is not guilty as charged in the article of impeachment.
Nearly a year later, investigations continue, with the House committee expected to hold hearings early next year. Lad Egan, KSL 5 News.
Lad, thank you. Paris Hilton topping political headlines in our state back in February. The reality star turned activist sharing some personal testimony of the abuse that she suffered as a youth at a treatment facility in Utah.
I feel that God gave me this voice and this platform where I can make a difference. So maybe I was supposed to go through this so I could be the one to help save them.
Hilton spent 11 months at Provo Canyon School while in her teens. Her return to Utah this year showing support for a bill placing more government oversight on youth residential treatment centers. That bill ultimately passed, and Hilton was again in the Beehive State in early April as Governor Cox signed it into law.
The pride of Utah. Still ahead, the local athletes who inspired us on their way to Olympic history in Tokyo.
First, though, the security breach that had Salt Lake City on high alert, and the man police say was behind it all.
In November, just weeks after the Department of Justice released a scathing report on the culture of racism in the Davis School District, a 10-year-old girl with autism died by suicide.
Izzy Tishner's family has hired an attorney who claims that their daughter was bullied because of her skin color and her disability. Debbie Worthen now with more.
I stand for Izzy. A prayer vigil on a rainy November night in North Salt Lake for a 10-year-old girl.
She kissed me on my cheek and she said, "Mommy, you're the best mommy in the whole wide world."
Izzy Tishner died by suicide, and her family says the principal and teachers at Foxborough Elementary School in Davis County could have stopped the tragedy. Activists say the people of Utah are to blame.
Her death is on Utah's hands, on the people, on the school districts.
At the Utah Jazz game November 11th, a moment of silence and a big donation of $50,000 to Izzy's family from the Utah Jazz. Thousands of others donated to a GoFundMe, giving the family over $150,000.
And join us for a moment of silence. Izzy touched the hearts of everyone who knew her. With an unwavering willingness to always help others, she shared her kindness with everyone, especially with her infectious laugh.
Days later, the Davis School District Board offering condolences to the Tishner family before hiring a new assistant district superintendent.
I am honored and I count it a blessing to have this opportunity to serve them.
Veteran educator Dr. Jacqueline Thompson, who retired from the district in 2018, will work on diversity and equity issues. Thompson has an extensive resume that includes national recognition and awards for her work creating equity and diversity in schools and districts.
I foresee that we're going to go in and do some training first off, and then we can assess the rest and see what's taking place. But I think training, you can't teach what you don't know.
As she works to change the culture at Davis School District, the Tishner family grieves the loss of their daughter and say her memory will live on and they will fight for change. In Davis County, Debbie Worthen, KSL 5 News.
Debbie, thank you. The family's attorney says the Tishners are preparing for litigation, creating their own team to investigate the actions of the Davis School District. Racial diversity and inclusion training became a top priority for state agencies in 2021, especially after the death of George Floyd the year prior. The Utah Department of Public Safety developed a 4-course training program on diversity.
What we're looking at is being able to create conversations about lived experiences from different perspectives from different communities.
This video shows one of those classes back in February involving Utah Highway Patrol. DPS is also looking at its mentoring and recruiting programs to make sure it's meeting diversity goals as well.
As we know, the University of Utah had a triumphant season, winning the Pac-12 championship for the first time in 2021. Amid this, though, there was a tragedy. Junior defensive back Aaron Lowe was killed and shot in September. Morgan Wolf brings us his story.
5 minutes to go. A home for champions, where a season had many highs. That, of course,
a Utah football player
didn't come without some lows.
Shots were fired.
One in particular with the first name Aaron.
A mother shouldn't have to bury her child.
Shot at a party after one of their football games on a September night.
He just won the Ty Jordan Award.
Aaron Lowe became the second University of Utah football player lost to gunfire.
Avery and Ty just became the best of friends.
Ty Jordan accidentally shot himself in December 2020.
Every time he went in the room, it lit up.
The two were close friends dating back to high school. So at the start of the season, in honor of Jordan, Lowe took on his jersey number 22.
My baby's with God.
Both will be the last ones to wear it.
The hardest worker, most compassionate, loving person that I ever knew.
While the team wraps up their season in the Rose Bowl, they now have two angels smiling down on them from a new home in heaven.
Father is and was a role model. He was a peacemaker. He lived his dream and he followed his dream.
Morgan Wolf, KSL 5 News.
Morgan, thank you. The Aaron Lowe murder highlighted two big problems for Salt Lake police: staffing and response times. It was a neighbor that first called police to complain about the noise at the party hours before Lowe was killed, but no officers were available to respond at the time.
We are down more than 600 police officers across all the departments. Salt Lake City is unfortunately still down 55 paid positions.
Police did rush to the scene after someone called in a fight involving a weapon, but not in time to save Lowe. It was just weeks later that the city rolled out a new crime control plan with the goal of lowering response times and adding officers.
A security breach of Salt Lake City's IT systems this year led to felony charges, a massive forensic audit, and questions that remain unanswered today on just how the city safeguards sensitive information. As KSL investigator Daniela Rivera reports, attorneys in the criminal case disagree on whether former city employee Patrick Driscoll is the suspect here or the scapegoat.
This is 50-year-old Patrick Driscoll appearing in court by video from the Salt Lake County Jail in November. He's accused of accessing confidential police information and sharing it with an accused sex trafficker, and in exchange exploiting multiple women.
At one point in time, he says to them, "Well, I'm not sure if I want to trade in my credits that I have with you to engage in an orgy for my birthday, or if I simply should just ask for the money so that I can pay rent."
Prosecutors say some of the information belonged to undercover police officers, and law enforcement expert Chris Bertram says it is remarkable none of them were hurt.
How is it that he accessed that? And how is it that he got in there so easy, if he in fact did?
According to court documents, Driscoll was an information technology employee and had full access to the police department as well as all city and law enforcement databases.
The Salt Lake City Police Department simply has no idea what the employees are accessing.
Greg Fairbrush is Driscoll's defense attorney.
So are you saying that your client did not access anything that he was not given authorization to access?
My client did not exceed the authorization that he was granted by Salt Lake City Police Department in the city.
City officials have addressed the security breach with limited written statements, declining repeated interview requests. The KSL investigators sent dozens of questions to the mayor's office and the police department. Most remain unanswered, including whether the city conducts routine audits to keep an eye on who is accessing sensitive information and whether any information belonging to members of the general public has been compromised. But we did learn through court proceedings that the city has had to pay for an outside digital forensic audit of its entire system.
Maybe this court should dismiss the case.
In a late December preliminary hearing for Driscoll, the state was not prepared to present evidence of probable cause, and his attorney successfully argued he should be released, pending the dismissal of charges or a trial. Daniela Rivera, KSL 5 News.
Danielle, thank you. Driscoll's next hearing is set for January 19th.
Quest for gold, the incredible and inspiring performances of Utahns that lifted our spirits during the Tokyo Olympics.
Also, an historic visit for Orthodox Christians, topping our year in review for faith-based organizations. That is still ahead.
When the hardships of the past year tried to weaken us, the faith of Utahns grew.
Yeah, from vaccination efforts by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to lighting the menorah at the state capitol. Carol Makita now taking us back through 2021.
President Russell M. Nelson and other Latter-day Saint church leaders received their vaccines in January. On the 19th, in a tweet, President Nelson wrote, "We have prayed for this literal godsend. Receiving the vaccine is part of our personal efforts to be good global citizens." In June, President Nelson and national leaders of the NAACP announced new educational and humanitarian initiatives as part of their ongoing collaboration.
He performs miracles and seeks no credit.
On Easter Sunday in April, producers of the popular series The Chosen launched Season 2. The top crowd-funded evangelical series about the life and ministry of Jesus Christ was shot at the Motion Picture Studios in Goshen, Utah.
I, Nephi, having been born of goodly parents.
Filming of Season 4 of the Book of Mormon video series took place during the summer outside Springville, Utah. Cast and crew faced the challenge of creating an ancient culture and the visit of the resurrected Jesus Christ to the American continent. Construction at the church office building plaza began in January as work to secure and renovate the Salt Lake Temple continued through the year. During General Conference in April, President Nelson announced 20 new temples, and in October, he announced 13. The North Visitor Center was demolished in November. The Krista statue was moved and will return following construction. Elder Garrett Gong dedicated the Winnipeg, Manitoba Temple at the end of October, the first temple dedicated in 18 months. At the end of June, the Right Reverend Carolyn Tanner Irish, 10th Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Utah, died at age 81. She served and led from 1996 to 2010 and was an advocate for immigrants, LGBTQ+ inclusion, and interfaith dialogue. The Archbishop of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America made an historic visit to Utah in July. It was a first visit for His Eminence to our state and the first time in more than 20 years for a Greek Orthodox Archbishop. Former Utah Governor Mike Leavitt became the new president of the Tabernacle Choir in August, and later that month, his counselors in a new presidency were announced.
See, if I'm going to testify, I need my own proof from on high.
In October, the Genesis Group celebrated its 50th anniversary with a musical celebration at the Salt Lake Tabernacle. The organization was created in 1971 under the direction of church leaders to serve the needs of African-American Latter-day Saints. In November, Rabbi Benny Zippel led the traditional lighting of the menorah at the state capitol on the first night of Hanukkah. He and his wife Sharon and family were also celebrating the 30th anniversary of their assignment to create an Chabad Lubavitch congregation in Utah. Throughout the year and during this Christmas season, the Magdalene Choir School celebrates its 25th anniversary. The children perform in concerts and worship services at the Cathedral of the Magdalene in Salt Lake City. The 5th through 8th grade choristers serve 9,000 hours a year and have performed in some of the great cathedrals throughout Europe. Carol Makita, KSL 5 News.
Carol, thank you. The Jazz dominating the NBA to kick off 2021, and the Utes earn their first trip to the Rose Bowl to cap things off. The year in sports, straight ahead. As we continue our look back on 2021, we have to talk about the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, which, as you know, took place in 2021. COVID delayed the games for a full year.
But even with all the restrictions and the challenges, Utah athletes shined during the Summer Games. Olympic specialist Alex Cabrera reminds us of some of their stories.
It was an Olympics like no other. Instead of loud cheering fans, athletes in Tokyo were met with empty stadiums and empty seats.
There is no such thing as zero risk, and that we all agree.
COVID delayed the 2020 games to 2021. But for as unusual as these Olympics were, the stories and success of our Utah athletes almost made you forget about the pandemic for a few hours each night.
And he has got it.
Athletes like Murray's Nathaniel Coleman, who won the silver medal in men's climbing, the first year sport climbing was included as an Olympic sport.
It was an amazing feeling just to be here tonight.
And don't forget about the silver medal won by University of Utah gymnast Michaela Skinner. She competed in the vaults because U.S. teammate Simone Biles dropped out, giving Skinner the opportunity to prove she belongs with the best in the world.
just to see that my Utah family has carried with me through all of this and has been pulling for me, and to know that like all my hard work has finally paid off has been so unreal, and just seriously feeling so grateful and just so humbled.
Harriman's Ryan White also had a strong Olympics debut, finishing just out of a bronze medal, 4th place in the women's 100-meter and 200-meter backstroke. Bountiful's Jake Gibb is wrapping up an amazing beach volleyball career in Tokyo, his 4th Olympics, and although he never won a medal, he is certainly a winner.
That will do it.
I was just sad. I was just sad to let go of the dream that I've had for 20 years, It's hard to let it go. I love this sport. I love it. I love it to my core.
The thing about the Olympics, though, is they keep going, with younger athletes ready for their moment to shine. And there are plenty of athletes in Utah looking to the Beijing 2022 Games, Paris 2024, and beyond. In Salt Lake City, Alex Cabrero, KSL 5 News.
COVID-19 once again had a major impact on sports in 2021, but it was also a historic year for sports teams here in the state of Utah. Utah Jazz battled through a pandemic-shortened 72-game season to finish with the NBA's best record. The Jazz had 3 All-Stars for the first time since 1989. Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, and Mike Conley.
Rudy Gobert accepting his Defensive Player of the Year trophy.
Rudy Gobert won his 3rd Defensive Player of the Year award. Jordan Clarkson won the NBA Sixth Man of the Year. The Jazz knocked off Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies in 5 games, but after taking a 2-0 lead, lost 4 straight in the Western Conference semifinals, including blowing a 25-point lead in Game 6 against the Clippers. There was also change in leadership. NBA legend Dwayne Wade became a minority owner. We also lost a legend, the unexpected death of Mark Eaton. It was a banner year for Utah's 3 FBS football programs, from tragedy to triumph. An inspired Utah Utes team went from a 1-2 start to 8-1 in conference play. 2 dominating victories over Oregon, including their first Pac-12 championship and their first trip to the Rose Bowl in school history. BYU enjoyed one of the most successful seasons in program history, a 6-1 record against Power 5 teams, which included their first win over Utah since 2009. They were ranked in the top 15 of the college football playoff rankings for several weeks. Tyler Algier broke Luke Staley's single-season rushing record, finishing with 1,606 yards and 23 touchdowns. Kalani Sitake earned a contract extension after a 10-3 year. The biggest BYU news of all happened on September 10th. A long-awaited invite to join the Big 12 finally came. They'll join the Power 5 Conference in 2023. Utah State shocked the nation by going from worst to first. New head coach Blake Anderson turned the program around quickly, leading the Aggies to an 11-3 record, the first Mountain West championship in school history, a blowout win over top 25 San Diego State, and a win over Oregon State in the LA Bowl.
The New York Jets select Zach Wilson.
The state of Utah was represented well at the NFL draft like never before. 2 players who grew up in Utah taken to the top 10. Zach Wilson, number 2 overall to the Jets. Penei Sewell, 7th overall to the Lions. Utah State star Namish Keita became the first native of Portugal selected in the NBA draft. After leading Utah State to qualify for the NCAA tournament 3 straight seasons, Craig Smith leaves Utah State for Utah, replacing Larry Kraskowiak. Ryan Odom replaced him in Logan. BYU women's soccer reached the College Cup for the first time in school history. They fell just short of a national title on penalty kicks in the championship game against Florida State. Michaela Colahan, the National Player of the Year. Tony Finau won the Northern Trust, his 2nd career PGA Tour win, finished in the top 15 in 3 majors, including the Masters. Bear River won the 3A softball championship, thanks in part to this miraculous catch by Olivia Taylor, a play that went viral. 2021 was a year in sports to remember. We can't wait to see what will happen in 2022. I'm Jeremiah Jensen.
All right, thanks, JJ. Little change taught us a big lesson in 2021. The Utah 4th graders inspiring us all to serve when we come back. And finally, today, a reminder on just how small things can make a big, big difference.
This past year, the kids in Geraldine Jones's 4th grade class showed us how to be selfless, and all it takes is a little change. These young kids at Oak Hills Elementary in Bountiful collected $400 worth of loose change and then used that money to go buy food. They then made an assembly line in their classroom and put together meal kits to be donated to a food pantry.
These kids loved participating in this act of service, and in each of those meal kits, they included something special.
And the last step of that assembly line was adding a handwritten note that the children had written and they were very creative and colorful. The kids wrote some jokes and happy messages, positive messages that just, you know, spread light and happiness.
It's pretty cool there. A great example of how a little change can go a long way in helping out others.
Well, that ends our review for us. Hope it sparked some positive memories. It probably shows us some things we hope don't come back in 2022.
And we hope you have a fantastic new year. We'll see you next time.